Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome you to our executive panel from SciCode, Beyond Legacy SAST, Unleashing the Power of Risk Prioritization in a Complete ASPM. This session is a part of our AppSec Secret Series, which is the monthly webinar show that we hold. So hello again to many of our audience members that have joined us before, and welcome to everybody that is joining us for the first time. I'm Ronen Slavin, I'm the CTO and one of the founders here at SciCode. Very excited to be your host for today's discussion on the future of SAST. I'm joined by two very special guests today, Roland, the former Chief Security Officer at TikTok, and Guillaume, the founder and CEO of Bearer. Together, between these two, there's a huge amount of experience and expertise regarding SAST and utilizing it and harnessing its power to create a more secure software. So thanks guys for joining me. And I guess thanks Roland. Guillaume, I'll let you say hello as well.
Hi everybody, happy to be here.
Okay, cool. So let's dive in. So I guess like the first topic that we want to discuss today is the need for a modern SAST approach. And probably the first question to the panel is, security teams are looking for a game changer in SAST, right? Like SAST is not something that is new, it's been around for actually decades. So why do you feel that legacy solutions have fallen short?
Yeah, I mean, I could take it from probably a CISO's perspective. There are many aspects, obviously, to static analysis in general, but in the past, independent technologies that are either purpose-built or very focused and narrow, and or are not integrated into the greater testing and assurance ecosystem, inclusive of understanding risk boundaries, downstream residual risk areas, or the details around products, cause a lot of extra work. So I think as the industry has changed and we started focusing on the capabilities of static application defense in general, we've needed to push the industry in a direction that drives faster answers, more relevant answers, and more detailed around specific code issues on different type of coding platforms and mechanisms that integrate back into how we view our risk, make decisions, and then remediate as quickly as possible in the by design process. So I think that's probably a starting point from a CISO, but it's been a heck of a journey.
Yeah, I agree, and I think if we look at it at the end of the day, the number of risks are piling up, and we're looking at the opposite. We're looking at actually remediating them and having less and less, and actually it's the opposite. Part of it is maybe because the solutions at the end of the day didn't really achieve on that promise, but also I think we have to look at it from also a paradigm shift, that those solutions, like you were saying on, and they're like decades old, 20 years old, I think we can say for SAST. If we look at how we build software today, we build software very, very, very differently than 20 years ago. We ship very fast. That software is more complex than ever. We're using many more languages. So all of that makes maybe the solutions that we use today, well, probably not adapted to today's world. So we need to rethink about the process, but the solution that goes with it. And at the end of the day, what we're looking at is obviously reducing the risk, not adding more work to the security team. I think they're overwhelmed today. And the way that we've been doing SAST with more like as an afterthought versus like more something like DevOps oriented, native security by design, as you mentioned, is clearly not working in a world that is extremely agile, where we ship software at an impressive scale. And I think AI is just going to be here to add to that. So we're just going to accelerate even more. So we need to find new solutions in a new paradigm. Maybe it worked in the past paradigm. To be fair, I was not building software 20 years ago, so I don't know. But I know that in today's world, we need a change of solutions for sure.
I agree completely. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think, if we look specifically at SAST and kind of, the changes that happen over the years, so we also we see movement in several areas. We see companies building SaaS solutions. We see open source products offering SaaS capabilities. There's kind of a lot trying to tackle it, and it raises the question of the quality of the scanners, and obviously not all scanners are created equally. So again, a question to both of you, like what is your take on the quality of scanners, and is it important? Do we just need a scanner, or should it be like a really good one? And from your experience, like what is your take?
It's funny, Gilliam's mentioned the security teams and the amount of work the security teams, and which is true. It's absolutely true, right? I can't have people in the AppSec dev program or our product security organizations marred with just a ton of false positives, unnecessary information associated with downstream residual risk that isn't even possible in my environment. And it takes longer for us to figure out what's going on, to achieve how to tell our development partners. Like, all of that work is due to the way that scanners work and interact, with risk data as well as understanding how our operations work. So I think that's one. But what we as security practitioners often forget, it's not just our security teams. I mean, who are we crushing at the end of the day? It's the development groups. It's the product development teams. It's our customers internally that we're saying, hey, you have poor quality code, you have a security vulnerability here, you have this sort of thing. And in order to ensure that we're developing that relationship positively, ensure that we're giving a good product back to them, to ensure that they can get the right information to immediately implement changes in code that makes sense and that actually affect the significant problem areas that are most riskiest to the organization, we need scanners that understand that. We need automation and integration with the rest of our data assets that make sense. And we need to do it in a way that developers understand. I mean, it can be, security people all day can understand it, but if we can articulate it, show it, and be able to provide a fast path to success, we're providing an unsurmountable amount of work to our development partners, who are expecting us to understand how they work, where they work, the technology they're working on, and give them good common sense remediation models necessary. So scanners aren't just about finding things. They're about finding, ensuring that it's true positives, ensuring that we have good information about the environment we're operating in to help prioritize it, and then being able to participate in a greater ecosystem. And that's why historical, traditional SAST has not, maybe been at the quality level necessary to meet and achieve where we are as a company of code today, right? Most organizations are simply an organization of code, and whether it's how we manage our technical infrastructure, how we drive our products to market, our internal operations, all of those things are code. And we have to quickly catch up with where our business is today.
No, it's well said. And if I take it from maybe more like a technical approach here, I would say that first, developers, and I've been a developer, CTO of EPF engineering for 15 years, so I've seen that firsthand on that side of the mirror, not on the security side of the mirror, is that first, we are not trained on security, not enough, and security is always an afterthought. So of course, if you have a scanner that is too slow, you're not going to wait for it. If the quality of the output is going to be a bit random, well, you're not going to care about it, maybe once, twice, and then after you completely disregard it. You're not going to wait, you disregard the outcome. So you're not going to act. And then even if those two things actually happen, so it's fast, it's in your development tool, it's precise, still the outcome and the goal is to solve the problem, is to remediate the issue. To remediate the issue, since again, the developers don't really have enough training on that topic, it needs to be done in a format that they understand. If it's like too much security jargon, for example, CWE, all of that is great, but for developers, it doesn't mean much. They need to understand, well, I've got some code that does a function. How do I write the same code that does exactly the same thing, but in a secure way? And that sounds simple, said like that, but it's rarely the case. And you could be precise, you could be fast, but if at the end of the day, the developer still doesn't understand how to solve the problem, they're not going to solve the problem. Developers, they are like we said before, in an agile environment, their job is to ship features, and everything, the entire organization is here for that. So they don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of patience, to be fair, about that. So a good scanner, there is like some must-have for sure, but then also one of the area is because you want to solve those problems in the line of the development, not after. And if you free up time on the AppSec team, that time that is free up on the AppSec team because things are actually resolved in the line of the development, in the line of going to production, it's time that actually is properly used to train developer, to basically educate them better about how to solve those problems. So you shift kind of the responsibility, and you get the most of your security team. And instead of spending time triaging thousands of issues, they can spend time on actually educating, training, giving recommendation to the engineering team that can actually solve those problems. So the quality of the scanner is essential. It's not the only thing, but it's a must-have today. I don't know any developers that are going to wait even an hour for a security scan. Let's be realistic. You have a test suite. That test suite takes 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on the size of your stack. My general rule here is that your scan need to happen faster because your developers are just not going to wait for it. So that's a must-have. Then after, the quality need to be here. The ability to understand what's the report needs to be here. And then if you do all of those things, you're getting closer to the ability to remediate those problems before there are actually problems. But we can see that there is like really big must-have here, and I'm not sure that the entire industry has been able to solve those problems, and is completely focused on that and understanding that the way we build software today is not the way we built software 20 years ago.
Yeah, I love that answer. So maybe just like to back down for a second. I guess I forgot this in the beginning. So kind of an intro to what is Bearer and the relationship with SciCode. So I'm sure that most of you in this webinar are aware that Bearer is joining the SciCode family, and actually we've extended our family with Bearer. The kind of the motivation from our side, from SciCode side, is recognizing the importance of SAST, and just like Roland and Guillaume just described, kind of the importance of having a really, really good SAST solution that is built for the modern area, where we always can, where we understand the development workflows, where we give all the context and information for the SAST issues that we identify, and we're actually able to focus on the more modern development standards, so modern programming languages and modern vulnerabilities like APIs, like accessing and using PIIs and things like that, that today we can also understand from code and utilize from code. Basically, when we saw it in the Bearer product, we thought that it's amazing, and this is kind of the insights and level up that the SAST industry really need. So the synergy between the product made a lot of sense, and eventually, after a very quick iterations of understanding like the synergy between the product, we all understood that this is like the way to go, and that this will allow us to deliver a complete ASPM solution with like all the capabilities needed to generate secure software or to build secure software. So that's kind of an overview of the background for this webinar. And since I already brought this up, so we know that many tools, or there's a lot of open source static analysis tools out there. So it would be also great to hear, like Guillaume, obviously you know a lot about the SaaS space and also research these tools. So what is your take on your open source tools? Like when are they good and when they are not sufficient? And happy to.
I think the open source solutions are great to show that security product, security solution can actually appeal to developers. It's not like a black box that you can't trust. It's even scary somehow. So I think it's kind of democratizing security, having those open source solutions, and I think it's really good for everybody here. Then the challenge is you have a few challenges, but I would say like a pure open source approach is creating an important challenge in SAST, for instance. You know, in SAST, so you have policies or rules depending on how you name it, but you're going to check for like a set of vulnerabilities or risk. If you have a pure open source approach here, you're going to potentially, well, open it for contribution, which in some sense is great. But also the problem is in SAST, generally speaking, we always have that question of accuracy, false positives. That's something that has been crippling the industry for 20 years, I think. And with an open source approach, so it's great. You can get the knowledge of a lot of people, but at the same time, a bad rule, a bad policy can completely transform the outcome and the number of violations, the number of false positives that you're going to have. So it's quite a challenge to be able to really have a full open source approach here. And it's usually and quite often comes at the expense of the quality that you're getting out of it. And like we said, if you don't have a good quality, a good precision, you're going to frustrate your engineering team, and you're not going to actually fulfill your outcome. So that one is a bit counterintuitive, and a big prominent of open source, of course. It's a bit counterintuitive, but this is something that we've learned and we've seen quite a lot. So that is something very important to keep in mind. Then after, if you look into open source, so you see a lot of open source scanners. Like I would say every major coding languages, they have like one really good, well-known open source scanner. Like in Ruby, you have Breckman, well, you name it. So they all have their own scanner. The problem here is that the way we build product today is not with just one technology. We mix technology together, and in an organization, you end up with like 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 different major languages that are used all across the board. Even in one application, you find easily 2 or 3. So what do? Do you embed like multiple scanners that are all behaving differently, that you don't really control? So this is becoming quite a challenge. You have even more tools that you don't control. So it's not great. That's definitively a problem here, the fragmentation. Then after, if you push things further, you need deep SCM, deep CI integration. You don't always get that from the open source scanner. It's quite a lot of work to plug that together, and there are still limitations. And at the end of the day, I'm a huge advocate of the developers, especially for SAST, but it's still a security team responsibility. And there is a job to be done by the security organization here. They need control. They need to be able to monitor. They need to be able to act upon this. So you need dashboards. You need metrics. You need to be able to actually know what's going on. And this goes a little bit beyond what an open source scanner or today is providing. That's that entire layer that you don't have. So I think it's great for the industry. It's great for the developers. It's great to show that there is maybe your idea and what you've experienced with SAST in the past is maybe not what you can have today in today's world. Still, I think it falls short, especially if you're like in a mid-size, large-size organization. It's not super realistic to rely on that. But if you're a small company, that's great. Actually, you can start to take care of security today and not start to take care of security when you have like 100 engineers and when it's kind of too late. So you can start your journey day one, and you have actual developers, engineers, DevSecOps that do that without even a security organization. And I think it's beautiful because it really shows that they care, and security can be baked in day one. But at some point, well, I would say there are professionals that need to take over. The organization is growing, and you probably need another set of tools.
Thank you, Roland. Maybe to you as well. Like maybe from the security side, like what is your take on open source tools versus commercial? Because especially in SaaS domain, like this is very popular.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be repetitive of what Gillian was saying, but you know, he points out a lot of important areas from my perspective. This is about getting good quality data fast to make good quality executive and security decisions, to be able to understand the totality of your application security environment, and being able to have that business discussion. Let's just take the discussion around speed, for instance. Why is that important? Well, there's a business reason, there's a security reason, there's a product reason. I mean, think about it on a go-to-market. How long does it take to get through your pipeline or your CI/CD or your by design process? And really, Guillaume said it, like, do I have to have 4 different technologies that then I have to consume the data, cross-reference it, understand it, create independent reports? Or is there a better mechanism with non-open source scanners that give me the validation, the verification, and the transparency across all my repos and everything I'm working on in a singular view that my team can understand, to give good decisions back to the product or the dev organizations so they can move to market faster, right? Are we slowing down our ability to be fast to market is a big concern. And that's on the business side, and really understanding and having and articulating those discussions with business leaders that own those products or own those development processes, to really talk to them about the decisions they have to make. I provide them with the tools, I provide them with the insight and the risks associated with what's going on. They have to make the decisions on the security quality within their product. And in order to give them good information and do that fast, I need a tool that enables me to be a good decision support platform. I think that's important on the business side. I think the second component is around security. I mean, let's face it, these teams are working around the clock. When my New York team is finished, my APJ team is cranking away, and code's being developed and apps are being developed around the globe constantly. So how do I have technology that keeps up with that in a way that different teams that are involved in that security and quality process can use that information to reduce the time that we have security issues open, right? How fast can I close those security issues before they become problematic to the risk of my environment? So just on the topic of understanding the information, a global view, and speed, it's important that you have a tool set that isn't just about an open source capability and reduce cost to the environment, but adds functionality and really business focused needs I have as a chief security officer or as a security executive or business executive at the company.
Yeah, these are all great points. So maybe to sum it up, so eventually I think we acknowledge that there are some really good open source solutions out there, but eventually open source solutions are not really free. Like, you have to operate them, you have to maintain them, you have to run them, you have to figure out where you execute them, to understand their findings, and you have to communicate it to your developers. So I think like Guillaume mentioned, eventually for maybe a small company or like a test project, this might work. But when we talk about large enterprises where you want to standardize, where you want to have something that works fast, that brings quality findings to the right people, there's the need for platforms. And eventually that's where our platform comes in, especially with together with Bearer. Roland, you mentioned some points regarding like quality and speed. So Guillaume, it would be great to hear from you, like why is speed important? Why is the accuracy critical? Like, what can you share on kind of the quality parameters that people should look for, and in the realm of SAST?
Yeah, I can start. I think I would put all of that on the developer experience tag. For me, this is all about developer experience here. If we just want to focus on that side here, speed. Said, like, you're not going to wait for a security scan. Like, realistically, your developer are not going to wait for that. They've got first, they don't want necessarily to do it, and if they have to wait, that's going to be very difficult. So that speed is critical here. It's in your CI also, so it costs money. Realistically, you don't want it to take forever. So that's why the speed component. There is no going around, and if it's slow, you're not going to scan often. If you don't scan often, well, gaps appears, and so on. So what you want is to scan all the time, everything, and not even have to think about it. That's the only way, essentially. That's security by design. So this is like an essential component. It doesn't give you anything, but this is like a must-have. Then the precision aspect. I think when we talk about precision, it's a complex topic in SAST, but I would insist on the false positive that everybody has in mind. I would imagine. When you look at SAST, generally speaking, it's always a balance between two things. How much do you want to find versus what is the quality of what you're going to find? So you have to find a way to balance those two things together. If you want to find 100% of the issues, unfortunately, it will come a little bit at the expense of the precision. So you're going to have false positive. Of course, today's, like with the technology we have at our disposal, we can do better than before. But if nobody can actually tell you, I'm going to find everything and I'm not going to have any false positive, that's absolutely impossible. This is just a lie. Like, I think it's important that to mention that. But then you have to think about who is going to be the user and what are you looking for. In SAST, like I said, we do things at the rules or policy level. So for example, something that is important is to think about what kind of security checks do you want to do, for example, in a pull request for your developers, and what is the quality of those checks. You probably are going to want to do checks that are going to provide a high quality, a low number of false positives, because you know that your developers are not going to tolerate false positives or a very small number. I've got people that told me, we've got 75% false positive with our solution and it's okay. Well, no, that's not okay. Maybe the industry trained you to think it's okay, but it's clearly not okay. And if you tell that to your developers, they're going to tell you right away it's not okay, and they're never going to play the game. So you need a high precision, you need a low number of false positive in the checks that you're going to do in your pull request. Like I said, it's a compromise that you have to make. So potentially there are some policies that are important that you want to be able to find a risk behind, but that might trigger a lot of false positive in your application for whatever reason. Maybe this one, you don't use it in the pull request, but you actually do a scan after, and this is only your security team that is maybe more able to understand exactly what the issue at play and can tolerate a little bit more. So it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, I would add to that, Gilliam. You know, people don't understand the impact of those costs. I mean, think about a fully loaded FTE average anywhere, right? Like, you know, between their salary, their benefits, what they make, you know, call it 200, 250K a year, you know, fully loaded FTE, and they're spending weeks going through erroneous data. What is that costing you, and what could you spend that dollar amount on? Take it further, take it into the development organization. You know, as you're looking at people that are sifting through unnecessary information to understand what they have to focus, you know, their dev teams on, and go back and recode and when it wasn't necessary, or they totally missed it. Now they have to do it twice. I mean, those are real dollar cost analysis that people have to put forward to think about the cost of ensuring good quality. And that is why that, you know, that difference between quote unquote finding everything and being accurate is so critical. And I'm not sure if as much of balance as it is focusing on accuracy. You know, that time to deliver code, time to remediate. Do you want to spend your business's, you know, or your budget focused on, you know, going through a haystack, or do you want to be extremely targeted and being able to run fast against your competitors in market? I think when people actually do the, you know, the analysis on what it takes to go through a stack of 100 findings, 200 findings, and how and who you're taking out of the fight, so to speak, and going to market to do that work and doing the calculation, you'll understand, you know, at a pure financial business basis that it's you know, it's untenable and it's not necessary. And again, your security team does it to dwindle it down to be able to give something reasonable to the dev organization, and the dev organization is going to tell you what's real or not, and then they're going to have to go apply it. You know, there has to be a better way, and that's why I think this marriage of SAST with an ASPM gives you this better end-to-end capability and can consume data from the environment, can consume data from the platforms you're operating on and the repos you're operating on, can give it directly to a developer instead of having to go through a security organization independently, right? Like, speed to good quality information and speed to action is important for a lot of security and risk reasons, but it's just as important for ensuring, appropriate cost management for your business.
Yeah, and it's something like, in that lens, it's like something that is actually merged in production. So after the development team actually have been able to solve the problem, if you go back, so you have the AppSec team triaging, creating their Jira ticket, whatever, and then asking the development team to fix it later on. This costs an astonishing amount of money. Nobody wants to rebuild code that is in production. You don't even know how it worked, what was the feature, we build it. It's legacy then, and so it's a debt. And then this is what happens today. So the best way to not have debt and to pay it is to solve the problem before it becomes one.
Yeah, these are great answers. I think like one of the things that really got us excited with Bear is kind of, the fact that it's a more modern SAST, right? Like more suitable and dedicated to kind of the more pressing threats. So Guillaume, like from your side, maybe explain to our audience a bit, like, what's modern about Bear, like what's the focus areas that are kind of emerging that you invested in, and educate us a little about that.
Yeah, so there is obviously multiple areas. So what we just discussed is an obvious one, like speed, quality, and the ability to consume the output is key. And we can think that in 2024 it's a given. Well, it's not. Let's be clear, it's not, because also it's difficult to build as a technology, but it's a must-have. So in a modern SAST, you want your engineering team to be really, really deeply embedded. So you need to provide them ID plugins, CLI, pull requests. You need to provide them everything so they can do their work. Well, you can have them do the security work, I would put it this way, in their workflow without slowing them down. So this is definitely a must-have, because the goal is to remediate the risk and not just to flag something in a report, check a box, and that's it. This is clearly not what we're looking at. But also when we look at at SAST and the scope of risk, like today, the scope of risk are different than they were 20 years ago. Like the way we build software today, again, is different. And I can give you two very, very specific examples of that. For example, the way we build software today, it's composed of many, many services and many external services. We don't build everything ourselves. I think SCA was a good example of that. But in the same lens, today, you don't build your billing services. You're not going to build your communication messaging system. You're going to rely on Twilio, or you're going to rely on Stripe, or on a certain number of partners that are going to give you some buildable components of that. And the way our software is so critical today, it means we process also a lot of sensitive data. We process personal data, which now is actually quite protected, PII, PHI, you name it. We process a lot of sensitive data. And we share also those data with all those different partners, with all those different services, internal, external, etc. So a modern SAST needs to understand that the way you build software evolved and need to account for those different set of risk and that evolution of risk. And this is something, for instance, that we've built into our SAST, is that ability to understand sensitive data flow. So meaning which kind of sensitive data you're processing, where is it going, so you can actually start to focus on those set of risk. For example, you can think about data exfiltration risk. Your developers are leaving loggers all over the place. This is normal. Those loggers end up into third-party services, end up stored into a different region. So you're even beyond like the scope of GDPR, for instance, and so on. You're using AI services today. Which kind of sensitive data do you send to third-party AI services? All of that are basic security risk that need to be covered in today's environment. This is what a modern SAST also is, beyond just the technology, beyond just something that we can take for a given, is also expanding the scope of risk that we're checking on. So yeah, it evolved. We should change the definition of SAST, I think.
And Ron, maybe like from your side, from the business side, like is there, like, do you see like more modern kind of risk within SaaS tools, or like focus of SaaS tools to these kind of new emerging issues of identifying, which code is touching PIIs and maybe is endangering me, or maybe I need to take like give more attention to this type of repos, maybe which repos are using which APIs, kind of these new categories?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're really talking on the core, justification, if you will, for integration with ASPM, right? I think,
Yeah.
you know, static analysis is static analysis at an application level, but the reality of how you manage, prioritize, and ingest that needs to take in the totality of the ecosystem you're operating in, right? Why am I doing that? Who's doing that? How are we getting, you know, how are we focusing on critical issues within the environment? Tools alone cannot do that. Platforms and integration with, you know, focused tool sets that integrate with that ecosystem can and will. I love the fact that Gillian brought up, you know, the subject of, you know, AI. You know, how does this help our AI pipelines? How does this help the applications associated with managing the data assets that AI infrastructure are using? You know, all of those, and being context aware. I think that's key in a modern day, you know, kind of SaaS technology. It's about context and ecosystem, and in being able to provide that back in a meaningful and intelligent way. I think one of the other things that we have to, you know, think about when we're talking about SAST is how do we develop and enable that tool set in a way that we can lower the barrier of entry for use, understanding, and actioning as we continue to have a gap in our resources. Like, do I have to have a dev code expert managing a tool set to be able to have a reasonable risk articulation with, you know, the dev or product organization? And a tool like this abstracts the level of deep technical knowledge necessary to understand everything about code, and being able to provide that at a, you know, it enables a lower barrier of entry, so you can start to train people earlier in their careers to participate in this broader ASPM defense capability. So I think, again, advanced SaaS tools are going to give us, help us solve issues around speed, help us solve issues around quality information going to our internal customers, our development organizations. It's going to help us with how do we create better analysts, not just security code engineers, but actually analysts within application defense spectrum, and then very quickly be able to help us move and support our business as they're going to AI, as they're now integrating in third, fourth, and fifth party ecosystems that are all application driven and API driven, and really help speed the organization to a level of assurance while they're chasing the market or leading the market in different ways. I mean, we used to have to stop, retool every time that, you know, our application organizations would do something different, build a new technology, integrate with a new ecosystem. And now with advanced detection technology in a SAST environment combined with an ASPM overlay, we now have an ability to actually lead that area for our technology portions of our business to be able to do that faster.
So since we mentioned AI a couple of times, let's touch this subject as well. I know that for SaaS, we're all very excited about the potential for AI to help with that. Bearer, you already had you know, the SAST assistant that you worked on that helps explain SAST issues, and right now we're investing a lot in kind of helping with remediation using AI and machine learning. So Guillaume, I'll pass this to you, maybe to share a bit kind of, you know, on the Bearer assistant, why you did that, and maybe on some of the future things that we're doing together.
Yeah, I think it always comes down to the same thing. You want to remediate the issue. You want to help the developers remediate the issue. And I think I'll never say that enough. SAST is difficult because the only person that can solve the problem is the developer, because it's a feature, it's a complex item, it's like way more complex than secret, or when you think about SE, etc. So SAST is difficult because of that, because you have issues by thousands and only developers can fix them. And the fix is not 1 second. It takes more time to fix. So everything you can do to help the developers understand and remediate that risk is giving you an edge. And we see AI And like AI is not a hammer where you can hit everything with it and it's going to solve magically every problem. But it's still a good tool that we can use. And the first aspect of using it that works very well and across the board, and that we've tested and we've implemented, is on explaining. Like, explain to me why this line of code that you flagged for me that is a vulnerability. Explain me in simple words, because I'm not an expert, what is the problem, and explain it to me with the context of my line, the line that I've written as a developer, not something generic, not something fixed, so something extremely tailored. So first, this is really good because it really helps a developer and actually anyone really understand what's the problem. So you don't use any jargon, etc. Something simple works very well. So one step further to and closer to remediation. Then after, you can also use it to start to provide some guidance about how should I remediate that problem. So explain to me, now that you've explained to me what is the problem, now I understand it. So it's a good education actually process. It's kind of almost an accelerated training when you think about it. Then explain to me what are my options, basically. Also, it needs a bit of training. It's not bulletproof. You need to be careful and curate that to specific set of issues, but also it works quite well. And then the goal, the Graal, you name it however you want, is obviously to say, well, here is the fix. In one click, I apply the fix. It works in some cases. It works very well in some cases. It doesn't work in every case. I think we have to be honest. It's like the false positive thing. If I tell you that I have 0 false positive, don't trust me. If I tell you that the AI is going to solve every problem, don't trust me. But it helps in some cases, and it's going to help more and more as the technology evolve and mature, but also as we understand better how to use it and we train it better. So again, you have to think about the usage, but in the best case scenario that we've implemented and that customers are using, you provide directly, for instance, in the pull request, the fix that can be applied, and you can commit it into one click. It doesn't work with every policy yet. It works with a subset of it. And even if it's not in one click, you're already going to give the developer an edge into resolving it, because you're giving the developer, I would say, like the boilerplate, like maybe 80%. They still probably are going to have to test the feature, make sure that it doesn't break, because they maybe don't have an automated test behind. But it's all of those small things that could be small up to very difficult and easy to very difficult that are here to help actually remediate, understand, and then ultimately to remediate the risk. So AI is a big topic in the SaaS world, because remediating is difficult. So we see it as like potentially the 10x improvement, like you have the 10x engineer, like your 10x engineer here is the AI, potentially in terms of remediating the risk. But it's a huge help. AI plays also roles into other areas when you think about building policies, when you think about also adding some context to some violations. But essentially where everybody is focusing right now is still helping the developer remediate, and there is all those sets of actions where AI is helping, and is helping today. It's not the future, it's today, it's right now, and it's evolving every day, of course.
You know what I think is super interesting in that spot, Ronan, is around AI, is how it's actually going to help us understand where we have quality issues, right? At a leadership management level, like, think about where AI is going to give us a leg up in understanding, first of all, we're solving things first, and it's going to be able to give us reportability on continuing issues we have in any given environment, and how do we retrain our organization so that doesn't become a repetitive issue across our products. But also, depending on the size of your organization, that may be just happening in one area, but have we checked and validated that across the remainder of our environment? And can we use the power of an advanced SAST capability along with an ASPM to then broadly look across our organization and look at the same type of security and quality issues in a very, again, active and accelerated way, so we understand the totality of risk issues within our environment, and getting us that prioritization that we need very quickly. And whether it's prioritization and retraining and movement out of certain technologies, or in context for remediation, AI is going to give us such a powerful mechanism to really solve for those quality issues as fast as possible.
Yeah, so obviously, like, we're all on the same page. I think like AI is really disrupting this AppSec space and really will help us build much more efficient programs and drive remediation at a much higher scale and speed. Of course, from our side, and Roland, you touched on this in our conversation. We also see, this whole notion of ASPM as a force multiplier for SAST, and SAST being like a core piece of what will make our ASPM, much more full and much more complete. Just like from my side, when I try to explain it easily, so to me, like, Bearer gives us the ability to get any insights we want from the code itself. So understand from the code APIs, access to PIIs, like really anything that you can understand from code, and there's so much intelligence there, we'll be able to do with Bearer. Then when you couple that with the power of our risk intelligence graph and our ability to ask more elaborate questions of like which repos have APIs that are deployed to my productions, who are the developers working on it, do they have MFA or things like that, suddenly connects everything together, gives us an ability to prioritize, build, understand business impact, and eventually, obviously, like, get to a much more secure state. So again, I'll pass the question to you. Like, how do you see SAST as a part of a complete ASPM? How do you see SAST combining in this notion of remediation and working with developer at various points? Happy to hear your thoughts.
I think quality SaaS with, that gives you the ability to do things we've been talking about for the past hour or so is critically important. But how do you get that data, that information that the SaaS platform needs to be able to do it well? And that truly comes from an ASPM environment. And it's a recursive partnership in a way. If you think about, you mentioned APIs. I mean, how many of us struggle with APIs on a daily basis, understanding what they are, where they are, who built it, what level of code it is, what authentication mechanism, like the 15 things you need to know about APIs to ensure that you're catalog defending and managing data movement or access in and out of your environments, right? Like that's difficult enough. And so in order to be able to see that holistically across your entire organization, you need an ASPM to take that information and correlate it and create that capability. But you can't do it well without, a SAST, a capability deep inside and understanding the code itself. So, I mean, I think the reality is, if you are going to, live the ASPM dream, as I like to say, at a much higher global and enterprise level for your organization, you have to have, a quality SaaS capability built into it. But that focus of that SaaS has to be engineered and available to consume information, to make the right decisions, and then be able to provide that back in a way that is intelligent, can use advanced intelligent capabilities within the product set itself to deliver it faster to developers with more context and capabilities. I mean, think about it, a SaaS technology that says, hey, this is the problem, here it is in code, here's the one-click fix, would you like to apply that? Thank you very much. Directly to the developer at the time of development. I mean, it's not just a game changer, it's a way that we will totally reinvent the industry, and it's hard to do that separately, and together it's such a powerful capability to drive that industry change.
Yeah, man, anything you would want to add, or?
No, I think it's very well said. I guess you see, like, an easy way to see it is that a qualitative SAST integrating into an ASPM is basically we each other share additional context. The SAST is going to provide additional context to the whole platform, and vice versa. And by doing that, you have better understanding about actually, is a risk super critical or not? Because, for example, if you just look at SAST in isolation, we set level of risk at the policy level, but realistically, it's quite dumb if you think about it, because maybe that application is not even deployed in an environment in production. Maybe it's not accessible to the internet. Maybe it does nothing. So are you going to focus the same amount of energy and resources on that one versus maybe a policy that is lower level, but that is in a super critical application, processing super highly sensitive data, exposed to the internet with API that are missing authentication? Well, and this is where you see the point of like the context aspect, and SAST give a lot of context, but also is missing a lot of context. And that context, you get it back from the ASPM and the rest of the integration, and vice versa. And of course, like together, it's a better world, and it's a better world in terms of prioritization and making sure we focus on what matters, and what matters is not straightforward.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one question from the audience that we have time to answer. So I'll read it, and happy to get your take. The question is, what would be the best recommendation when the incumbent SAST or DAST tool isn't performing scan properly? Would the SPM serve as an adequate replacement in this scenario? I can start kind of with my view. So, we really believe in Psycho that the SPM should come with native scanners as well. We believe that it needs to speak the language of the scanners themselves, understand what they do. So, in our view, a good SPM solution will be able to replace any tools that are not functioning well enough, or augment areas where tools are not covering you fully. So, for example, if you have SAST enabled on one repo but not on the others, a complete SPM would actually give you the protection in the rest of the repos that are missed by the current configuration. But Guillaume, Roland, any thoughts from your end?
It's all about context. We can always roll this conversation up at the end of the day into context and defense capability. Like one of the questions I always get, in the boardroom is, well, how do you know? How do you know we're safe? How do you know we don't have that vulnerability? How do you know? I think the question is about, if I have tools that are screwing up, can ASPM solve it? I think ASPM gives you the capability to know, because whether it's your existing tools, the tools of the ASPM that they give you, or other tools within the ecosystem it's collecting and analyzing on your behalf, so it gives you, whether you know you have a gap or whether you know that you're covered. I think the important part is to understand your total threat surface, your total code threat surface, and then being able to apply the right tools for that code surface. So being able to switch tools in and out is super important, right? Is this the right, is the ASPM platform capability good for you, or do you need something different? And having that choice. So as a user of an ASPM, I think that's the fundamental need. And then your job as a security expert is to drive in the right tool sets, either from the platform itself or from your general ecosystem, to achieve that total visibility and insight that will give you the context for the rest of your job.
Very cool. So we're almost at our time. So I guess like any closing thoughts from your side, Roland or Guillaume, something you want to add, or I'll wrap.
I'm super excited for you guys. One of the reasons I wanted to do this, the ability to take a context-driven ecosystem view with a very direct, SAST tool that can reduce unnecessary effort and get to better decision points, better resiliency, better defense faster. Has to be where the market is going, and you guys are driving that, and I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. Cool. Guillaume, anything you want to add?
Come try out what we're talking about. I guess the vision is exciting, and if it wasn't, we wouldn't be here. To be honest, and I think it's quite unique, and I think it will be followed by others because it makes so much sense.
Okay, cool. So we're at our time, and we'll wrap the session. So again, thanks to Roland and Guillaume. This was great. Always happy to have this discussion with you. I always learn a lot. For those of you who want to learn more on Psycho's new and powerful SAST, please head to our website at psycho.com. There's a lot of information there. Obviously, we're always happy to show you the product and demo it for you. And for the lucky ones, you'll get to meet Guillaume as well, maybe as part of the demos. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and see you in the next session of our webinars. Thank you all.